Welcome to Coffee and the Bull.
Hey guys, Mike and John with Coffee and the Bull. I want to say thank y'all for taking a moment out of your day and listening to this episode. Give us a chance to hopefully make your day better. That's kind of the goal with this. One of the things we were talking about earlier, the past couple of days. The other day I called you, and we're just going to kind of jump into this.
Yep.
I was having a bad day coming home from work. I was actually coming home from a therapy session of all things.
Yep.
And therapy wasn't what made everything bad. It was more everything leading up to that day, or leading up through that day, and that just happened to be when we wound up talking.
Yep.
And for those of you who don't know, me and my wife decided I let her convince me into buying a house that was built in 1953, and we, for the last, I think, year and a half, we've been working on this thing. Man, it has been every possible element of construction that you could imagine has been going on, and just kind of, especially as you get older, you get over it. You get tired of working on all this stuff. We're cash flowing this job. We're doing almost all of the work. Like we had a licensed electrician come in to replace the panel and stuff, but a lot of running wires, running outlets, and painting and sheetrock and insulation and studs. Like we've done all that. And the other day, like the big battle that we've had lately is we haven't had central air and heat, and we're trying to get that so we can get an actual insurance policy in place. And I've never done an AC unit before. We've talked about it. It's not even something you really call your friends. Like, you don't call your friends and say, hey, I'm installing an AC unit. Would you like to come help? Nobody's showing up, because all those things are heavy. Two, a lot of them just don't know what to do. It's not like, you grew up, hey, my uncle taught me how to do sheetrock or whatever. And so you take in, you can get some friends to help you that way, or painting, or, whatever. So we've had to do we did one of those DIY air conditioning kits, and nothing against it. Like, it was fine. The instructions are written, you got to know what you're talking about, to understand the instructions. So that doesn't really help on the DIY scale. But man, I got so mad because I misread one of the diagrams. All right. And we had talked about it, me and my wife were like, yeah, sure, we need to set it in the attic like this, So we took and we set the air handler in place, and we hook everything up. I hook up the plenum to the air handler so we can run all the ductworks to all the bedrooms, cut holes in the bedrooms, because it's never had AC in its life. The entire time this house has been there.
It's like a 100-year-old house, right?
It's built in 53, so it's been, they had one window unit, at one point, and that was it,
Right.
So when we initially got the house, it didn't even have studs in the walls. Like, it was just built different than everything that I've ever worked with. And so I finally, I get everything set up, and you have that moment of truth. Anytime you do any type of work, whether it's mechanic work or what you work on something electronic, when it's like, hey, I'm going to turn it on and it's going to work. Like, you get so excited. So I take and I climb my butt down out the attic, walking across the house, and I'm like, all right, I'm about to show my wife I know what I'm doing. Like, I don't need anybody. I got this. Flick the circuit breaker on, come back inside, and there's no power to anything. No, the fans are not kicking on. The thermostat wasn't registering anything or whatever. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So we spent the next 2 days, sitting there fighting it. And it all came to a head the other morning because I work night shifts and get off work early, 6 o'clock in the morning. I have an AC guy, an actual, somebody who knows what they're talking about, which, honestly, every now and then in life you have to get somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Right.
Because a lot of times we don't. And I get this dude who, he's 60 years old, and he shows up, and he did probably the best 60-year-old guy thing that you could do. Is in the first 3 minutes you tell them exactly what they did to mess up.
Right.
And of all things, he's like, hey, you put it in upside down, and like it's laid horizontally. It's not, it's it's sucking air from the side, so it's not like I've got it, sucking air out the attic, but it's the drain pan and everything's up top, and obviously you need the drain on the bottom. And I remember I just looked at this dude. I'm like, please tell me you're joking, And like, if ever you've begged a guy to do something in your life, it's like, please tell me you're lying, and you're just you're doing one of these old guy jokes. That's what it is. You're trying to get me riled up and be like,
Right.
no, you actually did it right. And No, that's not what he did. He's just like, yeah, you did it wrong. You got to disconnect all of this now. But as you got these, lines that run from your outside unit to the inside, from the condenser to the air handler, you got to turn this thing 180 degrees. But you can't do it just all real quick because you got to support these lines. You can't unhook them. And so it just adds a whole nother element of that's a $200 piece of equipment that I've now got to rotate,
right?
All in an attic, half hunkered over, whatever. Because that's the best way to lift things is with your back, not your legs, right? And so when you've been over in an attic, that's you do what you got to do. And so I let him talk to me for a minute, and then he left. And I remember I was so mad, so I laid down, took a nap for about an hour, got up, went to my therapy session, and vented to her about it for a little bit, and on the way home, I remember I was just so mad, like I could spit fire, like Mario from bloop, 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 Super
right.
Mario, and I remember I called you, and it wasn't that when I unloaded on you, it wasn't like, oh, I hate John, I'm going to talk about all this, but you made the mistake. You're like, hey, what's going on, buddy?
Oh yeah, no, I pushed,
and so it was, you kind of asked for it, but I know that conversation that I had because it was like, why do we do this stupid thing? I'm not an AC guy. And of course I put the blame on my wife. I did what every single guy out there does, every married guy. Does not matter what's going on. We put the blame on our wife. That is what it is because honestly, she held the instruction book. Hey, I think it needs to go like this. So I'm like, yeah, you're right.
Whose idea was it to buy this house?
It was her idea to buy the house.
Right.
So technically,
right.
Yeah, it is her fault. So if y'all want to send some hate mail, it's coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com. Attention Brittany, and we will make sure she gets whatever hate letter email y'all want to send to her. But it was one of the things where I wanted to be mad at her. It's not that she did anything. She's not the one who it weighs 200 pounds. She didn't put it up there wrong to begin with. That was on me.
Right.
I didn't interpret the instructions any better than she did. But in our conversation, it was a lot of things that I'm not going to say on this podcast because she's not throwing that up in my face later. But
just know she did nothing right.
She did, yeah, not in that conversation at least. She's done everything right. Like the moment she married me, perfect. She is 10 out of 10.
That was the problem is she can't do anything better after that.
Right. It's all downhill from after the marriage. But no, and that was. We had one of the conversations that we've had time and time again. And it was just, hey, I need to unload this thing. And because I was having a very bad day, and it's anytime you've ever worked on something where you're like, hey, because honestly, getting this AC unit is the last step for us to be able to get insurance on the house. Because right now, if it burns down, I'm out of my house, And so it's been one of the things that has been kind of on our minds where it's like, hey, I need to get insurance on it. At that point I can refinance it, pull some of my money back out of it, things like that. And it's the AC was the last big hiccup that we needed to get done in order to make everything a lot less stressful in life, And so that was one of the things where it's like, man, I had to have a moment where I needed to vent, And we've talked about it, since then, where that's kind of been the purpose of this podcast is, hey, look, it's normalizing talking. It's not you're not going to do it one time and then and just everything's going to be fine. And that's one of the things we wanted to bring up to you guys and gals who are listening is we don't have all the answers. It's not something that we're going to sit here and say, hey, if you do this step, 12-step program or 3-step, whatever, how many steps you want. I don't like a lot of steps, so I'm lazy and fat, so I like not stepping that much, but it's one of those things where we have bad days just like everybody else. We're living life just like everybody else. I have I forget to pay bills. My lawnmower company calls me all the time because for whatever reason I quit. I keep forgetting about paying the lawnmower note, and it's one of the things where honestly I find if they come repossess my lawnmower because I don't want it, it's too hot to cut grass.
It was like you mean for the lawnmower, not the company that mows your lawn.
Yeah, no, I don't. Yeah, it's I mow my lawn. I don't have a company or anything like that. Well, okay, she mows the lawn, but to be fair,
you picked out the lawnmower.
Right, I picked it out. So
okay.
I guess I did that wrong. I don't know. But it's one of the things where we live life just like everybody else. We're not these big multi-millionaire influencers. I'm not sitting there. I'm not going to go buy some Ferrari and show y'all pictures of hey, look at the latest sports car I bought. It's not. We're not those guys.
Side
we are
note,
living just like everybody.
I don't
else.
think if we ever make it big, we're buying Ferraris.
No, we'll buy like an army tank or something
Right.
stupid.
Something really
Just
stupid.
absolutely stupid.
Right.
But anyway, it's one of the things that we kind of had the conversation where we want to show guys, hey, just because we're talking about this does not mean we're immune to
No.
life. We still have everything that beats us up in the face. You get up in the morning and from the moment your feet touch the floor, they didn't touch the floor right, and everything just goes wrong. We have those days.
Yep.
And so that's where I was the other day, And so it was just another one of those conversations where I didn't ask you for it. You kind of pried, and I unloaded. But what that did was that kept me from going home and unloading that, one, on my wife, because I don't need a domestic violence incident to take place in the house. For those of y'all who don't know, she beats me on a regular basis.
Facts.
And she's significantly better at martial arts than I am.
She's a ninja.
Yeah, and also it kept me from taking it out on my son.
Right.
He's 6 years old. He doesn't know, hey, Daddy's
Having
mad.
a bad day. Yeah.
Not even that. Daddy's not mad at me, but he's mad because he doesn't know how to fix it.
Right.
And that was the thing is, okay, I put the thing in upside down. On top of that, it still didn't work after I flipped it back the other way. And so
Which is
still
an even
had to
funnier
get the dude
conversation.
to come in. Now, luckily, since then, it's been fixed. I now have AC, so it's been a good day today. Everything's good in the Mike's household. So that's where I was. But it's unloading kept it from being unloading it on you because I don't care about your feelings. That's how friends
Facts.
are. We don't care about each other's feelings. It kept me from having to vent that or accidentally vent that to somebody who did not deserve it.
Right. And in fairness, I've known you long enough and I've been friends with you long enough that I can tell typically when we're having a conversation, when you're holding something back or when something's eating you up and you need to get it out. But I also know, based on our relationship, that you and I have never had a you're mad at me or I'm mad at you situation or conversation. No.
I've been mad at you several times. For example, the time we almost died on the roof. I was quite mad at you that day. Just couldn't show it because I was crying because it was too hot.
It was hot.
It was hot.
I'm late one time.
Anyway.
But like I know you well enough to know when the tone in your voice and the way that you're having a conversation with me, that something's not right and we need to have a conversation.
Right.
And I won't say that I do it to necessarily, like, it's not in my brain to say I'm going to spare your wife and your child. It's, I know my buddy's having a day and you go to therapy and sometimes that therapy is geared towards different things. It may not be whatever you were getting ate up about that day.
Right.
And so, it goes to show that, like you were saying, we're not immune to life, and the venting, it doesn't change the problem. The problem's still there, and that's, like you're saying, it's one of those things we want to get out to our viewers is we have solutions that aren't going to solve your problem. They're going to solve the temporary situation where you're having a bad day or you're having I want to burn the world to the ground, or it's all this person's fault or whatever. It's a temporary solution to take your feelings out of your situation, to get the emotions, to get the feelings, to get the anger, to get all that tension and just let it go. And you're letting it go over here. You're not punching holes in the wall. You're not driving your truck off the road because you're mad at everything. You're not taking it out on the wife or the kids or anything like that. You're unloading it over here safely where this isn't going to get brought up later. It's not going to be something that we talk about later. Now, I may make fun of you later about the AC, but I'm not going to make fun of you about the conversation because it's a need and a necessity that you have to have. And so,
well, one of the things it does is guys tend to, typically we're, especially when you look at, your typical married couples, you know, guys typically are bigger, they're stronger.
Yep.
And so when you add that, hey, I wasn't mad at her, I was mad at whatever, and I was venting and I punched a hole in the sheetrock. what it does is it creates an unsafe environment.
Right.
You know? And a lot of guys don't realize where they'll do something where it created an unsafe environment, and now you have a whole other slew of issues.
Right.
You know, because hey, now they don't feel safe in their house
Right.
because you vented. You know.
Right, and that's one of the things I've never understood is people that punch the wall and everything else.
Right.
And I've been angry. Like, I've gotten to the point that I've wanted to hit things and I've wanted to smash everything and just let out that anger. But at the time, I didn't have what I would call an emotional maturity to say I need to vent to something.
Right.
And I ended up just bottling it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that over time that becomes a boiling pot. And if we don't get it out, we're going to either take it out on the wrong thing or we're going to create a bigger problem for ourselves that's way bigger than whatever the problem is.
Right.
And that could be, you know, simple stuff like the AC wasn't working that day because it was installed incorrectly, not because you did it on purpose or you just, you know, half-assed something. You just didn't know any better. And that little mountain or molehill, as they say, could have become a big mountain if you went home,
Right.
you take it out on your wife, and you punch holes in the drywall and you do all this damage. Well, like you said, you've got an unsafe environment. You create hostility, and I always think about the grumpy old man who's always bitter. He's always angry about everything. Nothing makes that guy happy. Even when he's doing exactly what he wants to do, he's just not a happy person because he doesn't know how to express the fleeting moments of anger and tension and upset. And so for our viewers, take this as small solutions. It's not the problem, the solution to your problem. We didn't solve your problem. Your problem is still there. Use it as a tool to say, I'm having this problem, instead of making it a bigger problem.
Right. Well, it's a way to help solve that, you know.
Right.
And it's like we've talked about several times. A lot of times we know how to fix our issue. For example, I can vent to you all day long.
Right.
When we hang up the phone, I still had an AC unit
Right.
that wasn't working, you know.
Right.
I knew I was going to have to find a way to get somebody who knew what they were doing
Right.
to come out there or something like that. Like there was going to be a procedure that had to happen.
Yeah.
But what we need a lot of times is not necessarily the solution to the problem, because we know what our problems are. We know what the solutions are. The issue is we need a moment to just be able to breathe.
Right.
You know,
Get clarity.
and to set back. It's the same concept as sharpening an axe. If you're trying to cut down a tree or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
you can, once it dulls up, you can beat it all day long. You can swing it till you can't swing your arms anymore. If you don't sharpen it, it's not going to do anything. It's not going to get you any closer.
Right.
And so that's all it is just kind of a sharpening process, for lack of a better term. But one of the things that I learned in that situation is sometimes you're not the solution to your problem.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you don't have the skill set that you need in your wheelhouse
Yep.
to fix what you need to do. Because I stared at that machine for 2 days. Honestly, there was a couple times I climbed in the attic and I just looked at it for a minute because I knew there was a woman inside the house who was trying to figure it out. And the last thing I needed her to do was see me not figuring it out. So I climbed up there because I knew she wasn't coming up there. And I sat there for a little moment of peace. It was like, I didn't know what to do, man. You know, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
And
Right.
and so it was one of the things where sometimes you don't have the skill set, you know, of that you think you have, you know, or you may not have the skill set you're trying to have. All right.
Right.
And
Well, I remember when you called about it too, and I felt like a jerk because I was like, "Did you check the batteries in the thermostat?"
turn it off, turn it on. No, I couldn't turn it on. You know,
Right.
I couldn't do that.
That's why I
You know?
clarified when I was like, "I'm not trying to be a jerk. I'm not trying to be funny. Did you check the batteries?" Like,
Yes, I checked the batteries.
Yeah, no, yeah,
You know,
there's a lot of
and
hostility.
so it was one of the things. But I remember, man, jumping back in history for a little bit. You know, there was a time while I was taking a break from law enforcement, and
Right.
I had a little construction company, and we were doing a small land clearing job, right? And I hired this guy. His name, I'm not going to put his name out there. We're going to call him Guy, right? Just call him Guy. And I like the dude. I love, you know, I'd worked alongside him for years. He'd always helped me out. Been a great dude, you know.
Yep.
But he was unhappy with where he was working, and he wanted to come work for me. All right, and I needed somebody, and so I talked to him for weeks leading up to it. Hey man, look, this is what we're getting into. I've at the time I had an excavator, I had a skid steer. We were doing land clearing, so we were running very large chainsaws. And so like I told him, I said, look, we're going to be cutting some trees up, things like that. Can you run a chainsaw? And he did what every redneck does whenever you ask him something, right? He lied his ass off, right?